Sometimes to find an outlaw, do you become one? This Project D is kind of meant for me because there are two really cool things about the Outlaw 65 from Ducky. New Cherry switches launched with the Outlaw 65 that feel really smooth with lots of interior modifications, including lubing. But they now carry a weird naming scheme. But like, what is MX2A? What happened to colors? You know, MX Red was so easy. Whatever. And second, I grew up with Lego, so following instructions to assemble something is totally in my wheelhouse, and assembling a keyboard from absolute scratch, including building your own stabs, was surprisingly enjoyable.
Once you get it all up and running, you just understand the layers that go into building the board.
I understand. You just built your first pre-built keyboard like from scratch, just like me with the Outlaw.
Nice. Yep. I built this from scratch, and it was a fantastic experience. I didn't know anything about putting together stabilizers or even lubing, so that to me was just this was a great experience. I loved it.
I guess it's not really a surprise this is coming from Ducky. They've been in the keyboard space forever and trying to challenge the things from Mode, from Glorious, from Odin. All that stuff kind of encompasses what the Project D is trying to deliver. And there are some hiccups along the way. It's not perfect, but it's a really good start. The slogan here really fits the keyboard, the Outlaw for the pros. For the pros, just because you get to customize basically everything from the ground up, including the exterior aluminum color, but that's gonna come later. We have multiple plates. Obviously, this is a hot swap keyboard, so your own switches and of course your own keycaps. But that unique element is building everything from scratch so that you get to understand what goes into every single layer and every single element and how things are assembled, and obviously giving you the option to put it apart and rebuild it for different plates and different mounts and just experimentation in the future. Whoa, dude, that was so Ridge last night. You went to the Ridge? Of course, I had a secret code. What is it? It was Ridge. That's Ridge, man. That's Ridge. Wait a second, is that a Ridge? Yep. Didn't have to go anywhere last night. Dude, that's so Ridge. An evolution in slim towers designed to fit your space for gaming or entertainment, standing tall or laying flat, with powerful fans to scare the heat. A Gen 4 riser cable is included, so you can find your own balance. That's Ridge for you, the talk of the town. Rigid below. Alright, let's get the specs out of the way. It's a CNC aluminum frame on the exterior, feels nice and heavy, although the edges are not super refined. 65% layout available in ISO and ANSI. It's a gasket mount with 5-pin RGB LED south-facing switch mount. The plate material is palm or FR4, you choose which one you like, and also the gasket mount dampening is either pour-on foam or rubber. So the building assembly was pretty straightforward, as you would expect. The instruction manual is perfectly clear, all the baggies are labeled so you know exactly what part to use when. The surprise, this keyboard comes with an inspector card, making sure that all the parts have been looked after and everything should fit together. Nice. This is my first keyboard experience of this kind, and the only issue I've encountered is like having two big fingers to handle those tiny screws, the tiny washers. Even the tiniest Allen key that's included with this pack is just, it's hilarious. It's, you know, you need it, but it's also quite difficult to work when you have slightly bigger hands, you know? Assembling my own stabs was my least favorite thing, right next to doing cable management for a computer case. You get two choices of plates, palm or FR4. I went with FR4 for slightly stiffness and more rigidity, but the palm gives you a little bit more cushion. I know this from experiencing other keyboards in the past, but there's nothing in the manual that lets you know what is the difference between palm and FR4. Ducky, you should fix this. This continues into your choice of padding for the gasket, either pour-on foam or rubber. So I chose with the rubber because it seemed to me like it would give you the most cushion, because the pour-on foam is slightly thinner. But again, nothing in the manual to let you know which one is catered towards what type of typing experience and sound. And so after the main keyboard body was assembled without the switches and the keycaps, I noticed that some of the paneling was misaligned and not something that I was expecting for this high price point. And that was user error because I noticed some of the screws were not fully tightened. So after doing that, it sort of fixed the issue, but still it's not perfect. And then it was time to populate all the switches. So you get 70 in the pack, so only 3 additional. So 67 switches to populate a 65% keyboard. And in case you break one, you can swap it out, but I would love to see more extras included. It's always recommended to run a keyboard tester to make sure all the keys are registered and are recognized in their correct spot. For me, one switch did not register, and pulling it out, you can see that one of the pins was bent, and that was user error, I guess, but it still felt like it went in just fine. And then after bending it back in place, populating it, everything was recognized, and it was time to move on to the keycaps. These triple shot PBTs look absolutely fire. I love the deep blue and the accent of the orange and the light blue. There are some inconsistencies in build quality, so the chamfered edges between the side pieces and the middle pieces are not equal, and they don't fully align everywhere, so that's a little bit unfortunate. And this is like the first edition, so I'm hoping in later editions it's going to be fixed, but at least for this price point it's a little bit unfortunate. Also, the edges all around the aluminum are extremely sharp. I have to be careful, especially on this bottom edge, like I feel like it cut paper. This is very strange for a Ducky keyboard not to have customizable individual RGB levels like we have on every other Ducky keyboard. You can cycle between different presets, you know, RGB, rainbow, puke, and everything like that, but no individual color adjustment, which is so bizarre. So I prefer to just turn this off and just admire these beautiful keycaps. Although I do feel like the darker aluminum frame would complement this keycap set better, just because the light one is a bit too light for my taste. Which, by the way, are triple shot PBT. I didn't even know that existed, which is for the secondary characters. So we have the blue keycap, the orangey yellow font, and the slightly blue font for the secondary characters. Looks absolutely gorgeous, and you can see that underneath. So this thing will never fade, although I will say the surface is quite smooth. They feel almost like ABS, but they are PBT, just really smooth. Now the typing experience with this thing is a little mixed for me. So the stabs are perfectly fine. I put way too much lube on my backspace and it was a little sticky, but now it has evened itself out, which I'm happy about, while the rest of the larger keys with the stabs feel really nice and thocky. While the thockiness unfortunately doesn't really translate to the switches themselves, they're linear and they're smooth, they're quite light, they're nice to type on, but they feel scratchy, which is weird because you can hear the scratchiness, but you don't feel the scratchiness. It's kind of a bizarre thing, so the acoustics are a little compromised, but the feeling is totally fine.
When I think of Ducky, I think about small form factor boards, really great typing experience. But now with every manufacturer, they want to approach the elite community, and they want to just offer that sort of premium flagship. They're covering all of their bases for keyboards, right? If I was spending that kind of money, I would probably consider something like this, because when you talked about the inconsistencies with the chassis, things like that, I don't know if I could digest seeing that every single day. When you're spending that kind of money, you're looking for perfection. You want it to look good. You want it to feel good. That's what you look for when you spend $400.
I finally now appreciate what goes into building a high-end keyboard, even though this is going to be super inaccessible for many because of its price point and also pre-order, so in terms of the capacity of the production stuff. But remember that most of these high-end features, once they are entered into the mainstream, they trickle down into more affordable products. And knowing Ducky and their really good history so far with keyboards already, I'm excited to see what can be taken from something like the Outlaw 65 and applied to something like the 1SF.
Ultimately, there's a massive community out there that can guide you through the whole process. It's a commitment. It's going to be an expensive hobby. I learned a lot. And honestly, I kind of want to do this more now.
It's not that far off of a difference in terms of your day-to-day use versus like a mainstream Ducky keyboard already, and that's a really good sign. I just hope they fix the inconsistencies in the frame, in the visuals, because otherwise the interior guts are absolutely perfect and it would be something that I would definitely keep in my keyboard collection. All right, guys, I'm Dimitri. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video, and let me know what you think of the Outlaw 65. Is this something on your radar? Why or not? Let's have a conversation. All right.